All right, so this is going to be the second part of the class, and this is the hands-on side, the hands-on section of the class. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to follow these steps. This first step to the hands-on is we're going to architect our deployment. What we want to deploy, we want to architect it. And this is the best option if you are working in the cloud. Before you create anything, you want to draw the architectural diagram so that if somebody that is not there, when you create the resources, if that person wants to like work on the resources or manage the resources that you created, they know the connection or the networking requirements. They know, okay, this server that is you created, these are the other server that it is connected to, these are the database that it is connected to, or this is the architectural diagram of what you deploy. So we are going to create our first architectural deployment, architecture for our deployment. Then after that, before you spin up a server, there are some things that you need to first do. And we are going to, apart from logging into your console, we are going to be creating this from the console. The main first thing that you need to do is to make sure that you select the right region. Because if you select a wrong region, that means you are going to be deploying your resources in a wrong region. Then you're going to decide on which availability zone do we want our resources to be deployed. Picking an availability zone is not as important as picking the right region. So after that, you're going to create security group. That is like a firewall that is going to be protecting our instance. Then you add some rules to it. And after that, you're going to create a key pair, which is like another layer of security, which we discussed earlier in the theory part. When we created all these requirements, those are the requirements or the informations that we're going to use to spin up the actual instance. Then once we spin up the instance, we are going to connect to the instance to see that, okay, the instance is actually working. We can now start deploying our application on the instance. Okay, so let's proceed. The first thing that you want to do when you want to create an instance, we are drawing the architectural diagram now. We are going to decide which cloud provider are we using. Now we are using AWS. So you first want to draw a diagram that represents your AWS. So AWS have a lot of icons for you to do this. And if you go to the Lucidchart, which is the software I'm using, is a web-based software, they have a lot of their icons that you can use. They have a lot of their icons that you can use for this diagram. So if I open a new one, go to Home, open a blank. So not only used for AWS, you can use it for Azure, you can use it for Google, you can use it for anyone that you want. But if you go here under the more shapes, you can pick AWS here. You have AWS Architect 2017, 2019, and 2021. And you have Azure too. So I'm going to pick AWS, then open it. So you can see different icons that you can use when you are drawing your architectural diagram. You can see for database, you see for compute, you see for anyone, you see for storage. So and this is one pick. So you see, this is AWS Cloud. This specifies or signifies that, okay, we are using AWS Cloud. And that is the first thing that you want to draw. But I've already drawn this, so I'm just going to be using my presentation. So we have AWS Cloud, which is going to specify, okay, we are using AWS Cloud. In AWS Cloud, there are multiple regions. So you also have to specify which region are you deploying into, whether it's US is 1, US is 2, US is 3, US is 1, 2, or US West 1 or West 2. Or if you are using outside of the US, you have to specify the region. Then after the region, you remember inside the region, there are multiple availability zones. So you also have to specify inside which availability zone do you want to deploy your resources. Then once we specify the AWS platform, the region, and the availability zone, then we can now deploy our instance. You can now deploy our instance. When you deploy instance on the cloud, you need to protect it. So the major protection for an instance is firewall. You need to add a firewall. It is that firewall that will prevent unwanted people to be able to connect to your instance, either people or application. So the firewall on AWS is called security group. And the way you draw the architecture is to just draw a red line across it. So this shows you that this instance is being protected by a firewall. So anybody that wants to connect to your system now, you have to give them permission. So this firewall must ask, okay, where is this person connecting from? Then if you know where the person is connecting from, then you have to allow it. But the way we allow on firewall, instance firewall, is by using the ports that they are connecting from. A port is just like a house doors. Let's assume you have a door, you have a house, and inside that house, there are multiple entrances. Like let's say this is a entrance, front entrance. You have another entrance here. You have another entrance here. You have another entrance here. And you have small windows everywhere too. So the port is like when somebody is coming, you have to give them permission to come in through one of these entrances. If this is the only entrance you want them to come in through, this is the only entrance that you are going to open the gate for them to come in. So anybody that is coming, that come and pass this place, is not going to be allowed to enter. They all have to follow the main entrance. So when somebody wants to connect to your application, wherever they are coming for or wherever they are sending their communication from, whether they are using web browser or they are using FTP, which is file transfer protocol, or they are using secure shell, which is called SSH, or they are using SMTP, which is for sending of email. Wherever they are sending the traffic from, we determine which of the door to open, which we refer to as ports. If somebody is sending traffic from web browser, the port that is specified or designated for web browser is ports 80 and 443, which is called HTTP and HTTPS. HTTP is not secure. HTTPS is secure. So that is why when you open any web browser and you type an email address, if it doesn't have padlock like this, it means that any message you send through that web browser is opened, is not secure. But if it's using padlock, that means the message you send is using HTTPS and it is encrypted, meaning it is secure. So if you want to check, if you go to this side of any web browser, if you see something like HTTPS like this, that means any message that is sent through this browser is encrypted and it is secure. And that means it's using port 443. So if you want people that is going to be connecting to this server, if you want to make sure that they are using HTTPS, that means you are going to only open port 443 so that it is only one that is using HTTPS that can connect to your server. If they are not using HTTPS, they cannot connect to your server. So that is how you are going to specify in the port. You're going to use this port for that. We're still going to discuss this gradually when we go deeper into the class, but this is just an introduction. So if you opened ports 80 and 443 on your security group, that means anybody that is coming with web browser will be able to connect. If you open port 22, which is for SSH, that means anybody that is using secure shell will be able to connect. Secure shell is this. Remember yesterday when we are talking about the CDM, that you can connect to an application using this black thing. This is when, if you are now do SSH-I, so you can connect to that server using this. So if you are connecting using something like this, that is secure shell. So on the security group, port 22 must be opened. If you want to use email, then you have to open the port for the email. I've forgotten the one for email. I think is you can check this one. I know it's 49 something or something like that. So if somebody wants to connect through DNS, that is port 53, then it has to be opened as well. Any other port that is not open, for example, I didn't open port for FTCP, then this person cannot connect. It can't connect to the server. So we're still going to go deeper into this, but just know that security group is just like a firewall. It's not just like it's a firewall, and it's just like a protector for that instance, and it's protecting this instance. So apart from that security group, another thing is that people will want to be connecting from external network. For example, if you want to use your laptop to connect, your laptop is not on AWS, so your laptop is an external to this. So it has to first connect to the internet. The internet will send the connection here. Remember, when we were discussing initially, we said, but for two systems that are not on the same networks to connect, they both need what? Public IP. So this server must use public IP address. So now it's going to have two IP, public IP and private IP. So the key, remember we talk about key pair 2. So you that wants to connect, you also have to provide your key. So these are the public, this one here you are seeing is the public key. Why this? That will be with the customer or the user is going to be the private key. So this is the architectural diagram of what we are going to create. Yeah, somebody said for the, which one is port 25? Is it the STMP? Yeah. So this is the diagram of what we want to create. So now let's quickly jump into our console and start creating this. So here is the console. Remember, the first thing that we want to pick is the region. We want to make sure that we are in the correct region. So I'm going to select US East 1. That is where we are. Then after that, I want to create, I'm going to be going back to this. Let's go back up step, one more step. So we've logged into our account, we've selected the region, and let's also say we are going to be using US East 1A. So we have decided on the availability zone. The next thing is to create the security group. So for the security group, you can see these are all EC2 resources. So for the security group, if you scroll down, you're going to see under network and security, you see security group. So just click on it, and you can see you say create a security group. If you open your account for the first time, you are not going to see all of this. I think you're only going to be seeing the default security group, but I have already created other security groups. So the way to create another one is just click on create security group. And when you click on it, it's going to ask you some information. So this is the way you are going to be sending information to AWS so that they know what they are going to create for you. You're going to give it the security group name. So I'm just going to call this my first security group. But make sure that you are using good naming convention. So what is this security group is going to do? I'm just going to say allow port 22 and port 80. Let me use 3. Allow port 80, 443, and 22. So those are the ports that I want to allow. And when you are creating a security group, you have to specify. I know you don't know what a VPC is, so don't worry about that. But for you, just pick a default VPC. So just pick the default one. Don't bother. We're going to talk about VPC later. So the next thing is the inbound rules. These inbound rules are the doors, like I talked about earlier, that is like you have to open a specific door. So we want people to be able to connect to our application from web browser, either secure web browser or unsecure. So I'm going to open both ports. You're going to search here. You're going to see all those ports that we talk about. Port HTTP, protocol HTTP. We can see immediately we select HTTP, you say it's port 80, and you pick on it. Then the source, we're going to pick the source of everywhere. Like anybody from anywhere from the internet can connect to it. That's why we say port 0. Then we are going to also pick port 443, which is HTTPS. I can see you pick 443, and it's going to be everywhere as well. And the last one, we are going to pick port SSH, which is secure share, and that's port 22. And we're also going to pick anywhere. We're going to talk about this later. This is not secure, but for now, it's okay. And you can add description to it. So the description is optional. So I'm just going to say allow port 80. Then the second one is going to be allow port 443. And this one is going to be allow port 22. But it's optional. You only need to worry about the inbound. The outbound, you can just select all traffic. When we get to security group, I'm going to be teaching you how to do security group chaining, that you can create multiple security group and chain them together so that they can communicate with each other. But for now, just leave the outbound the way it is, or if it is not set it on all traffic. Immediately select all traffic, is going to pick all and change the source to port 0. And that is all for the security group. Then the next one after the security group, we've created the security group and we have added rules to our security group. The rules are the port 80, port 443, and port 22 that we added. So the next one is to create a key pair. So creating a key pair, you just need to go back to your EC2. We are still under EC2, and scroll down. You will see under network and security, you will see key pairs. Click on it. Currently, I have a key pair, but for you, if you don't have anyone, just go to create key pair and click on it. So give your key pair a name. I'm also going to call it my first key pair. Then you can select any of the key pair type, but let's leave it on RSA. For the private key file format, pick or select .pem and click on create. Immediately you click on create, something is going to be downloaded on your system. Make sure you do not delete it. You have to keep it. That is the private key that is downloaded on your system. Anytime you want to connect to your server, you must provide the name of that private key. So I'm going to click on create and just make sure that you are looking at my screen. You will see something downloaded on my system. You see, it just downloaded, and this is what you are seeing here. So that key is going to be inside my download folder. I can go to my download folder and move it to another place, but I'm going to leave it in my download folder. So now you can see I have my key. So those are the steps before we launch our EC2. So now we can now go to launch our EC2 instance. So launching our EC2 instance, we need to go back. Let me close this tab. Go back to the same place. So under instances, just click on instances. So the first one, instances, click on it. That is your EC2 instance. Currently, I have some EC2 instance that I'm using for other projects. But if you want to launch a new one, just click on launch instance. So when you click on that, go to, you give your web instance, you give your instance a name. I'm going to call it my first web server, because I want to use it to host a website. Then remember, we talked about the operating system, which is called an AMI. So this server that I want to create, what kind of operating system do I want to run? Do I want it to run? I want it to run on Amazon Linux. If you like, you can run Mac OS. You can run Ubuntu. You can run Windows, whichever operating system that it wants to run. So I'm going to pick Amazon Linux as my operating system. If you scroll down, you can see it selects Amazon 2023. I'm changing this. You can change it to different flavor of Amazon. If you select Mac, you can change it to different flavor of Mac. And the same thing with Windows, you can select a different version of Windows. But there are some that are free and there are some that you have to pay. If you select any one that is not free tier eligible, you are going to pay for it. So make sure that any operating system that you are selecting, they are free. So I'm going back to the Amazon Linux. And I'm picking, you can see this one is free, the first one is free. So I'm picking the second one, Amazon Linux 2 AMI. That is the one I want to use. So it's free, and you can see free tier eligible. If you go and pick anyone that is not free, all these ones that are not showing free, if you pick any one of them, then you're going to be charged. So be mindful of the one you pick. Then scroll down, you will go to the instance type. This is where we are going to specify the vCPU, the memory, and the networking. So the only free one here that you're going to pick is T2 micro. If you pick any one or any other one that is not T2 micro, you are going to pay for it. And the price is in front of them. If you pick T2 nano, you're going to pay 58 cents. If you pick T2 small, you're going to pay 3. For window, you are going to pay 32 cents. 0.032 cents. So Only make sure you pick the free tier, and that is T2 micro. Scroll down, the key that we created earlier, which is called my first key pair, that is what you are going to pick here. My first key pair. For the networking, the only thing you need to change under the networking, leave it exactly the way it is. Remember, we said we want to decide on the availability zone, and we go for availability zone 1A. I mean US East 1A. So this is where you are going to specify that availability zone US East 1A by clicking on the edit. If you not change it here, it's on that subnet that you're going to change it. And that's why it's telling you that no preference, that default subnet in any availability zone. We don't want any availability zone. We want to use US East 1A. So you are going to edit this, and you are going to go under subnet. Then once you get under subnet, you're going to click on the drop down arrow, and you can see all this availability zone. Go for availability zone 1A, which is US East 1A, and this is it. Click on it. So it's going to deploy our resources inside the US East 1A. Remember, we talked about public IP address. By default, if you don't specify anything, the system is going to automatically generate a private IP address for you. If you want to make sure that this server is able to communicate to an external server, then you must automatically enable public IP. If you disable public IP, that means this server will not be able to communicate to any server that is not in the same network, at least for now. So make sure that you enable the public IP. Then the firewall, which is called the security group. Remember, we created our own security group. So you're going to select existing security group. So when you click on it, look for the security group that we created. We call it my first security group. So I have a lot of security group. Okay, this is just one. That is fine. So I'm going to select it. This is it here. You can see I have two, the default security group and the one I created. So I'm going to select the one I created. Apart from this, if you go to advanced networking, you can specify your private IP address. You can specify it here. But for now, I will want you to leave this blank. Don't pick anything. Let the system automatically pick one for you. In subsequent class, we are going to pick our own specific private IP. So you can close this advanced networking configuration. But I just show you that if you want to pick your own private IP, then you have to select, or you have to type it here. But for now, leave it blank. If you put anything here, there's tendency that your system will not connect. It will give you error because there is a strategic way of specifying your IP address. It has to be in the same CIDR block. But for now, we've not talked anything about CIDR block, so leave it blank and close this advanced. We are not modifying or exchanging or deleting anything under advanced configuration. Under advanced network configuration, to be precise. Then when you scroll down under configure storage, leave that blank too. The only storage you want here, this 8 gig, that is the minimum, and that is fine. Do not change anything here too, so you can close it. If you scroll down, open the advanced detail. Under here too, do not change anything here. Leave it exactly the same, the way it is. In subsequent class, we are going to do some modification here. But for now, leave it exactly the way it is. So also close that tab. So the last three tabs, advanced network configuration, configure storage, and advanced detail. You are not changing anything there. Later in subsequent class, we are going to modify them. So here, for numbers of instance, we only want one instance. So this should be 1. If you put 2, it's going to create 2 instances for you. So make sure it is 1. And that is the end. Just click on launch instance. So now we have our instance. You can see successfully launched instance. If you go to launch log, you can see it say initializing request successful, launch initiation successful. So if you want to see the instance that you just launched, this is the ID of the instance that you just launched. Then you can either click on these instances and it will take you to where you can see all your instances if you have multiple. If you only have one, just refresh this button and the new one that you create is going to be showing as you're going to have an instance state of running, and the status check is going to be showing initializing. Make sure that you wait for this initializing to become successful. It's going to show like 2 of 2 check. It's going to turn to 2 of 2 check. Until that, do not do anything with the server. Don't connect to it. Just let it finish initializing. Once it's finished, it's going to show you 2 of 2 check. And that is when you can start connecting to the server. So while we wait for that server to finish initializing, you can open it by clicking on the, let me go back to show you. You can open this server just to see more detail about the server. You can either see the details from here, underneath here, or you can actually click on this instance ID so that you can open a page where you can see all the information for that instance. So you can see this is the instance ID. This is the public IP address. So if you want to connect to a public or an external server, this is the IP you are going to use. If you want to connect to an internal server, which is the server that's on the same network, this is the IP you are going to use. And you can see the instance type that we pick is T2 micro. You can see this is also our public IP address. Then if you look at here, you will see some other tabs. These are all the information for the instance. We are going to be talking about some of this information later. If you see, we're going to talk about alarm and status later. Monitoring, that is later. Security, you will see our security. You can see under our security, that is where we have our security group. It's telling you that, hey, this instance is secure. And if you want to know, this as a security group. The networking, this is where we have all our IPs that is showing. You can see the public IP, the private IP, the private DNS. You are going to understand what a DNS is later, and a public DNS. Then if you go to storage, you're going to see the storage information. We are going to talk extensively about storage later. So this is all the information about our instance. Our instance is running. And now we can go back and connect to this instance. You can now see it says 2 of 2 check passed. So meaning that that instance is now ready to be connected to. So how we connect to this instance is when you click on this, you make sure that you select the instance and you click on connect. So it's going to give you various ways of connecting to this instance. But the only one that is going to work for us now is this middle one. SSH client. When you click on it, it's going to give you an instruction on how to connect to this instance. It's going to give you an instruction on how to connect to this instance. So the only thing you just need to copy is make sure that you copy this example. Then the way you are going to connect to it is that you are going to open an SSH client. There are multiple SSH clients out there. You can use the one that I showed you yesterday, which is called VS Code or Visual Studio Code. You can use Mobile STM. That means you have to go and download it. You can use Bash shell, or there are multiple of them, and you can also use the CMD, that the one that comes with your system. But the one I'm going to be using is this one here, VS Code. So if you don't know how to download VS Code, make sure that you watch the video on our website. I was sorry yesterday I said I'm going to upload a video on YouTube for it, but I forgot. I will try it today though. So let me clean this. So the way we are going to connect to this server, there are some things. Even if you don't copy this, if you do not copy this, this is how you're going to connect to it. If you go to any of the SSH, this is what you need. You are going to, you see what they have for us here. Let me clean this place so that you can see it properly. They gave us instruction how to connect to it. The first instruction is,
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So launching an instance on AWS, it doesn't have a GUI. You have to connect it through the CLI.
Yes, it depends on the instance that you spin up. If you spin up a Windows server, it has a GUI, and you can also connect to with CLI. But if you spin up a Linux or Unix server, any server that is using Linux, you have to connect with CLI. Yeah. But there are some software that you can download that can help you to connect through GUI. But 90% of the time, you see people connecting through the CLI.
So the VS Code is to connect it through the CLI?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the command that you are going to type to your VS Code is what they give you here. They say you're going to do SSH -i. Then the key, remember the key that got downloaded on your server, on your laptop. Wherever you keep the key, you must provide the path to the key. The path to the key and the key name. The path to the key and the key name. Then you are going to provide the user, they provide you a user, which is called an EC2 user, sorry. Then adds. So what they are using here is the DNS name of the public IP. But I'm not going to use the DNS name of the public IP. I'm going to use the public IP itself. So the way you're going to use the way you're going to get the public IP, if you go back to the instance, you can copy this public IP here. So I copy the public IP, then I can go back now. So it is the public IP. Let me see, where can I put it? I want to put it somewhere. If I put it here, it's going to cover the screen. Okay, let me just write it out. So it is this public IP you are going to put here, 44020.31.22. So this is how you are going to connect. This is all the information that we need. This is all the information that we need. So when you go to your VS Code or whichever of this thing that you are using, whichever one of them you are using, this is what you are going to type. So I'm going to copy it, but make sure you read this instruction. They said locate after you connect, after you open your SSH. So let me open the SSH client that I want to use. I want to use my Git bash. You can also use, let me see. So this is my Git bash. I need to connect to the terminal. Remember yesterday we said go to this line, click on terminal, open new terminal. So it's open a terminal for us. So the first thing they asked me to do, I'm going to, let me see if I can minimize this one. So let's read it. They say open the SSH client, which I have opened. Then I say locate your private key, the key you use to launch the server. So I'm going to locate, the key is actually saved in my desktop. So I'm going to go to my desktop by doing cd slash my download, sorry. It's actually in my download. So I'm just going to type this cd to my download. That means I want to move inside my download. So now I'm inside my download. Then they said the next thing once I move inside my download is to run this command. So I'm going to copy the command and I'm going to run it. Just paste it, copy and paste. Oh, sorry. What that command is doing, I can type the command, change mode, 440, and the name of the key. What this command is doing, this is a Linux command. And initially when we created this key, the permission for this key, the permission for this one is 440. The permission does not have execution permission. If you don't know Linux, I have videos for Linux. You can watch it on my website. And I can post that in the YouTube if you guys want that as well. So what this is just saying that initially, the permission that this key has, it does not, you cannot run it, you cannot execute it. It doesn't have this. So what we are doing is now is that we are changing the modification, which is the permission, so that it can only have execution rights. So just, if you don't need to bother yourself, just copy this and paste it in your terminal. But make sure you remove that double quote, then press enter. It's not going to show you anything, but what it does is that it gives you permission to execute that file, which is our private key. So that is what you need to do there. And I type clear so that I can clear my screen. So if you go back, that is all. I now say connect to your instance using the public DNS. You can use the public DNS by just copy everything here and paste here. This will work, but me personally, I just prefer the public IP so that, but if you don't want to use the public IP, you can just connect like that. And make sure that you remove these quotes. I always remove it. I never know whether it's going to work or not, but I always remove it. So then I remove the public DNS. I want to use my public IP address. So I'm going to paste this here. Oh, come on.
Why are you using DNS instead of IP address?
No, they use DNS. It means that it's using IP address.
I mean, just know why.
Actually, just a preference. there's no difference. If you use DNS, it's still going to connect. So, okay, let's use DNS. What they use there. It's just a preference. You know, DNS and IP address is actually the same.
Because DNS is just for the domain and IP.
Yeah, DNS is just domain. So instead of giving people IP address, which is not friendly, then you give them domain name. So You look at it now. Now I'm using DNS. So I just want to make sure I don't like this. I'm going to remove it. Just a quote. And now, remember, you have to be inside your download. Otherwise, you have to provide a full path. So make sure you are inside your download because that is where the key is. And that's why I can call the name of the key directly from here. So I just copy what they have here and I paste it here. Then when I press enter, it's going to ask me, let me open this wide. It's going to ask me, are you sure you want to connect? I will say yes. Now, I'm inside that server that we created. So anything I'm doing on this screen now, I'm not doing it on my laptop. I'm doing it on the server that is inside the AWS data center, which is this server here. So that is how to connect to your server. Anything you are doing here. So as the beginner, you don't really need to do any fancy thing here. What you just need to do is be able to connect to the server, and that is what you have done. In our next class or upcoming class, I will give you a script that you can just run, and it's going to create a web server for you, and you will be able to see a web server. So I'm going to stop the class here because this is what we actually want to be able to achieve today. So now if you are saying this, that means we are 100% successful, succeeded in creating our first instance. So what I want you to do now is to go out from here by typing exit. And now I'm back to my laptop. So close this and make sure you terminate the server that you create. If you don't terminate it, they are not going to charge you. Just make sure that you turn it off. If you don't want to terminate it, turn it off. But this is what I'm going to do. As if I were you, I have to recreate all of this, terminate it, recreate it again, terminate it, recreate it again for the third time. So that way, you're going to get used to it. And at first, you can create it by watching the video, jotting things down. Then by the second time you are doing it, you can still be watching your jot down, but make sure you can create all of this information, all of this server without looking at your book or your jot down. Just know what to do. And that is what I want you to be able to do. So you can see when I stop this server, there is something that disappeared. Every other information remained the same. But if you look at the public IP address, it has disappeared. It has disappeared because the public IP address is actually paid for. It's AWS that own it. They just borrowed us. So now that we turn off the server, they take out immediately, they take out their public IP address. But look at the private IP address, it's still there. So if we turn on this system back, the public IP address, they are going to give us a separate public IP address because the one they gave us before, they must have assigned it to another person because it is public. It's money. They are making money from it. But the private, they are not bothered about this. But the public, they take it back. Immediately, we are not using it. So you can see that is how valuable the public IP is. So I'm going to terminate this instance. Initially, I turn it off, but now I terminate it. When you terminate an instance, it's gone. It's just like you deleted it. It's like you throw it away. It's not coming back. But if you want it again, you have to create a new one. If you want an instance, don't terminate it. Just stop it. But if you don't need it again, terminate. So to terminate it, just click the instance. Make sure you are selecting the instance. Go to instance type and click on terminate. Then it's going to terminate the instance. You can see now terminate. Then it's going to terminate the instance. So now that I've terminated the instance, you can also delete your security group that you created for that purpose. Search for it. I think I do my first security group, search for it. You can delete that as well. And also delete the key pair. So now you delete everything that you created. So this is the habit that I want you to develop. When you create something, delete it so that you don't get charged and you don't get surprise charges. All right. Any
Last
question?
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
What do you suggest that we use because again, because this one is the AMI is in Linux, that's why it is you are able to remote into the instance through SSH into through the CLI. Do you
Okay.
suggest that for easy understanding, we should use like a Windows AMI to start? At least we can see what we're doing instead of the CLI.
So yeah.
Or
So
which one is better to
do the one that I showed you. We are still going to do the window in another class. But I can tell you, if you go to any company, majority, if you put 10 company down and check their server, if each company has 100 servers, I can tell you out of these 10 people, 9 of them, 80% of their server is going to be Linux. Yes.
that's true. Most server hosted on Linux. Yeah.
9 of this company, 80% of them is going to be Linux, 80% of their system. So that is why you want to focus more on Linux.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're still going to do window and you will see it how window is like. Window is going to show you like normal desktop that you have in your on your window computer. All right. Any other question?
Yeah. So the interface you use for the command, that's Visual Studio, right?
Yes. So I can quickly show you. I think time has gone. Maybe tomorrow or Wednesday, I'll quickly show you how to download it. But make sure that you actually watch the video. I have it on the YouTube. I believe I have it on the YouTube, and if I don't, I will post it there today unfailingly. But if I do not, you can also watch it on our website. Or you can actually search for any YouTube video how to download and install Visual Studio Code. There is a lot of video out there that will show you that.
Also, for the best practice, is it that we should first create the architectural design before even creating the instance?
Yes. So initially, when I started with cloud, I don't create architectural diagram. Then when I develop more experience, I now see the usefulness of it. So I've been telling people, even in my place of work, I mandate it. Anybody that wants to create an instance, they have to create an architectural diagram, and we have a folder for the architectural diagram. Because the issue is, if your company employs if you create an instance and you don't create an architectural diagram, you don't show like and another thing that we are also going to be creating data is documentation. You have to document everything down. We call it SOP, but that is down the class. So if somebody creates an instance, let's say you create an instance now and you just configure it, then you are not with the company again, or you are moved to another department. Then if another person has to come in and continue managing that server, he won't know what the server is talking with or what other server is talking to the server. And he won't know like what are the reasons for creating the servers or the network diagram or some resources. So you're going to give that person a lot of headache to make sure that I start finding things, joining things together to make a whole information. In order for this not to happen, that's why you need to create a folder any instance that you spin up, you need to draw the architectural diagram so that in future time, even you yourself will know if you are troubleshooting something like, okay, this server is talking to this server, is talking to this server, this is why these ports are opened. So that is the best option.
Do you want to provide us with some website to get that graphical interface that we can use?
Yeah, it's called, the one I use is this, though my own version is paid. So, but you can actually use the free version, Lucid Chat, Lucid. I can post it in the Telegram. Any other question?
Thank you.
All right, there's a project I actually want you guys to work on, but I don't know if today is a good day. This is it here. And I'm also going to post it in the Telegram. So we are going to work a lot on this project, but the one that I actually want to work on based on what we did today is this, launching EC2 F1 instance. So the only thing you need to stop here. Once you launch the instance, you are good. Forget about setting up AWS CLI, but just try to attempt it. But immediately you launch this, just take a screenshot and send it to the Telegram, then terminate this instance immediately because they are going to charge you. So I think the price for the instance is like less than $1. But they are going to charge you. So instead of using the actual, instead of using the actual instance type, they use let me see the instance type that they use. They use F1.2x large. Instead of using this, just use T2 micro. But just follow this instruction to create a web server for me. But instead of using the same web server, the instance type they use, which is called FPGA, use T2 micro. That was the project. I told you guys are going to be doing project. That you are seeing there is a real life example. That's real life example. So, but I don't want you to get charged. And if you don't care about the money, you can actually deploy that same server. Let me see, Telegram.
Are we going to be charged if you try to access the server through the CLI or
Through the CLI?
No.
If you access the server through the CLI, they don't charge you. You can access your server anyhow. It's just using the instance type. That's why, that is when they charge you or not. The instance type that you use will determine whether they are going to charge you or not. And the storage too. Remember when we select storage that has to not change the storage and leave it in 8 gig? If you go and change the storage to a higher fraction or to higher gig, they are going to charge you for it. So just leave it in 8 gig. That's the free version. All right. So we are more than normal time, but apologize for that. So let's meet on Wednesday, 7 to 8 on Wednesday. All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Thank you very much.